This way, you bypass the need to judge the spin. Think about it, which is more difficult for your opponent, returning a serve or returning a push? Today, let's summarize the push stroke. From my observations today, let me point out the biggest problems for amateur players. Serving, service receive, pushing, and looping, these are the 4 key areas. Master these 4 skills, and you'll become an advanced player. First, let's address the issue of receiving short serves with a push. When receiving a short ball, don't create space between your racket and the ball. I've emphasized this many times. Why do students so often push the ball off the end of the table? This is a common question. It's because you're creating too much space when you execute the push. Get closer to the ball when you push. This is the key to control. The problem for many players is taking a backswing when moving in, and that backswing is far too large. Remember the first rule for short balls: avoid a large backswing. Because many short serves are actually half long, it's very easy to push them out if your stroke is too big. Second, there's an issue with the racket angle. It's often too open or flat. You are hitting the net because you're contacting the ball after it has dropped too low, not because your racket is too vertical. So you compensate by opening your racket angle to lift the ball, but this makes the push too high and easy for your opponent to attack. So, against a serve that isn't heavy backspin, you should contact the middle to lower portion of the ball. Many players, especially penholders, contact the very bottom, which will always pop the ball up. The third problem is excessive forearm movement. You're trying to generate power from your forearm, but for a short push, you should not be using your forearm for power. The force should come from the racket tip. Using your forearm will just punch the ball long. I've noticed that pushing is very common in amateur matches, especially for short balls over the table. When you push, use a compact, sharp motion to generate spin, rather than just poking the ball forward. Especially against serves with light or no spin, my students tend to use way too much forearm. Secondly, let's discuss pushing long balls. It's acceptable to push a long ball to the opponent's backhand, but your timing is often off, and you're contacting the ball too early. For long balls, provided your opponent isn't a strong attacker, you should use a chop-like motion and contact the ball on its descent. When pushing a long ball, you actually need to use your forearm to guide it deep. Many of you are doing the exact opposite. Your long push motion is too short and too early. It should be the opposite: slow down, use your forearm to guide the ball forward, otherwise it will go into the net. A long push should be slow, soft, and forward. A short push should be quick, sharp, and with a downward motion. This explains why you struggle against sidespin backspin serves. Many students push long balls directly into the net for this very reason. You absolutely must adjust your technique and rhythm to differentiate between a long push and a short push. The second major issue is hitting the ball into your hand, which happens more often on the forehand push. Let me explain why. The first key reason is that the ball curves after the bounce. If you position yourself based on the first bounce, you will misjudge its path and hit your hand. A left sidespin serve will always kick towards your left, while a right sidespin serve will always kick towards your right. Therefore, you must anticipate the contact point. For left side spin, if it bounces here, you must shift slightly to intercept it. Same principle for right side spin. You need to adjust your position. After the ball bounces, prepare to intercept it slightly to the left of the initial bounce point to account for the curve. When dealing with right side spin, shift slightly to your right, and the push will become much easier. Hitting your hand or wrist happens mainly because you fail to account for the side spin's curve, positioning yourself based on the first bounce instead of the ball's trajectory. The third issue is a lack of patience. You feel you can't generate power, so you try to win the point with one aggressive push and then rush the follow-up. The push is a control shot, not an attacking shot. No matter how good your push is, it's very difficult to win the point outright with it. Therefore, you need the right mentality for pushing. Your first priority must be consistency. Whether you push at the peak of the bounce or on the fall, maintain a smooth, even tempo. Don't try to force the point, or you'll make an unforced error on the push itself. Through contact, ensure your hand speed is consistent. You might ask, but what if they attack my push? The primary goals of a quality push are creating wide angles and keeping the trajectory low. Rushing and adding power will only lead to more mistakes. Contact the ball at the peak of the bounce or just after, and use a smooth motion for stability. Just focus on controlling the trajectory and placement. Now for the forehand side, the problem is your footwork. Many players move straight forward, which completely cramps their stroke. From this cramped position, it's difficult to push down the line, and you can't use your arm effectively. When moving in for a short ball, you must open your body, turning sideways to the table. Don't face forward, or you'll restrict your own movement. When you push from that closed stance, your opponent can easily read that the ball is going to the middle or their forehand. You must open your body to threaten both the straight and cross-court angles, which allows for deception. The second point on the forehand is the racket angle. When receiving a short serve, don't hook your wrist excessively, or you'll only make contact with the side of the ball. If you do that, you'll be vulnerable to the spin because hitting too much of the side gives the ball no forward drive. Pushing with a hooked wrist will cause the ball to dive sideways into the net. You shouldn't contact the extreme side of the ball. The side cut we discussed uses motion to create friction, not just a static angle. Many of your net balls are due to an incorrect contact point, not the opponent's spin. You should open your forearm slightly. You can contact the ball slightly off-center, but not too far, as this allows you to execute a long, aggressive push. Hitting too far on the side will cause you to hit the net. Let me reiterate the point about racket angle. In amateur matches, you'll face many light spin and sidespin topspin serves, so your racket angle cannot be too flat. This is the exact same issue as with the backhand. Do you know why your racket angle becomes too open? It's because your elbow is too high. This is a very common flaw, and the root causes the elbow position. Pushing with this racket angle will cause the ball to pop up every time. Therefore, when you push, you must keep your elbow down. This allows your racket to be in a naturally higher position. Let me reveal the secret to why you struggle to loop my push. I raise my racket and cut down on the ball from above. I don't push from behind the ball. If I were behind or underneath it, you could loop drive my push no matter how heavy the backspin was. To execute a high-quality push, you must raise your racket to create a downward cutting angle. Of course, this technique is for balls without heavy spin. Against heavy backspin, you'll hit the net. This method is perfect for light spin serves and can generate surprisingly heavy backspin. Raise your hand to let the racket head cut down on the ball. The resulting push will dive sharply. A standard push from behind the ball just goes forward, allowing your opponent to use its momentum for their loop. This is why you can't lift my push. If I pushed normally, you could handle it. But because I cut down from above, the ball dives faster than your upward looping motion can compensate, causing you to hit the net or miss completely. The fourth problem is that you often just block or touch the ball instead of executing a proper push. Is this because you're afraid of making an error, or because you can't read the spin? Actually, using a sideswipe is a very effective solution. You can think of it as performing a left side spin serve motion, but over the table. With the sideswipe, you don't have to read the spin. Whether it's sidespin topspin, no spin, or sidespin backspin, the same motion works and neutralizes the incoming spin. This is because the contact is very soft and tangential, without any forceful, direct impact. This sideswipe is used internationally on both the forehand and backhand, and it keeps the ball very low. I've realized it's very difficult to teach spin reading because many players genuinely cannot perceive it. It's not a lack of effort. Many players will call out topspin or backspin to themselves, but in reality, they are just guessing. While some techniques require a specific opportunity, universal receives like the sideswipe or the push flick solve the problem of not reading the spin, especially against hidden or illegal serves. Furthermore, the sideswipe produces a slow, floating ball that disrupts the timing of amateurs who like to play early. A simple soft push, by contrast, is far too passive. Just execute a left side spin motion over the table. Don't make the racket angle too open, or the ball will slip. Keep it slightly more vertical, and you can place the ball wherever you want. Simply imagine you are performing a left side spin serve. Everyone knows this motion, so it's intuitive. This way, you bypass the need to judge the spin. Otherwise, you'd have to make extreme racket angle adjustments. If you can't read the spin, it's likely a neutral spin ball, so use a neutral return method. Of course, if you can't even identify a high-kicking sidespin topspin serve, then you really need to work on your spin reading. Someone asked, what about on the backhand side? Just imagine you're performing your backhand serve motion, but over the table as a receive. It's simply the difference between serving from behind the table and receiving over it. Just make your serve motion smaller and more compact, and you'll master it. Think about it, which is more difficult for your opponent, returning a serve or returning a push? The more advanced players I saw today all added sidespin to their pushes. Without it, the ball's trajectory is too predictable, like a ball from a robot. A ball with sidespin is what will force your opponent to make a mistake.